Wolves then get all 3 points, and let's take a look at what that means for their place in the league. They currently sit third. Of course, a victory with Liverpool would see them drop to fourth. Liverpool in action against Brentford this weekend. For more on this, let's welcome in, shall we? Frank Leboeuf is with us, as is Julien Laurent. Oh dear, it's all over. That's it.
It's not unexpected. I think there was always going to be some bumps in the road, and obviously accelerated by stupid suspensions, which they've got, and injuries, which have been unfortunate, particularly the Van de Ven one, because he's been quite superb at the back, a bit of an insurance policy. So, you know, look at these players that are unavailable, then it's going to be difficult. And I think whilst this story has been, up until this point, a really good one, I think in reality, if he guides this team into the top four, I think that'll be a very good season. In fact, I think it'll be a great season, because you look at the teams chasing, the likes of Aston Villa and others, there's a lot of teams up there that are going to be vying for those Champions League spots. And I think anyone who figured that they were going to be going toe-to-toe with Man City and Arsenal, and I'm not sure there are many out there, but there are probably some, it was never realistic. And this is disappointing, they'll bounce back. But it's just a little bit of realism. When they lose some of their best players, the backups are not quite good enough, and I think we saw it today.
Did you see enough to suggest they will bounce back?
I did. Listen, I think a disappointing result, without question, but you look at those injuries, and going into this game, I really wondered how Postecoglou would have them set up to cope without Maddison, and what he does, he pushes the two wing-backs even further on, it seems, in Pedro Porro and Emerson Royale. They push way on and get very narrow, almost two of them kind of making up for Maddison. I then had a huge concern about Eric Dyer as a centre-back with the injured Van de Ven. How would he cope? And in truth, well, I would have thought that they would play a little bit deeper because Dyer simply isn't quick. They didn't. They played very high up the park. Davies was really good on the cover. And you saw a lot of that same Spurs DNA in this one, despite the missing players. And in the end, just ran out of steam, away to a Wolves team that are trending in the right direction and conceding twice in injury time.
Are they being too nice, Frank?
Who?
These boys are saying, it's all right, he's got injuries.
I think they're pretty... Well, Shaka is pretty generous with Tottenham. I think I'm a little bit concerned because, as Craig said, you know, they don't have any backups. They have good players, but as soon as somebody's missing, you can see that he's not replaced in a proper level, I would say. Yesterday, I mentioned that I was worried about the two centre backs, and I saw today that even Davies and Dyer didn't show me any insurance that they can cope against even a team like Wolves. It was for me a generous Wolverhampton team who gave everything, and I was wondering when they would score, and I thought they would lose without deserving to lose, and they showed at the end the strength because of Sarabia, and they won the game, and they won the game deserving that result, really. For me, there was only one team. I was very disappointed with Tottenham, how the way they play, how shaky they were. I think they lost their mojo. And the worst for me is they might have lost their aura, I would say, where we know exactly what they're lacking right now. And that's a concern. So, yeah, they can finish in the first four. They won't win the title, that's for sure. But they have to readjust very, very soon.
Frank suggesting they're closer to relegation fodder now than top four, Jules.
I think top four is a fair, objective ambition. I'm a bit more in the Leboeuf team than the Hislop team today on this game. I have to say I didn't think this was good from Spurs. They had just one shot for most of the game until I think the last 20 minutes or so, and that was the goal. That was it. There was just nothing else. They had the ball, but the creativity that was obviously lacking because Maddison mostly wasn't there. I'm not sure you can replace Maddison by Højbjerg, even away at Wolves. I think Postecoglou had other options. I thought they were naive defensively the last 10 minutes, where they should have played deeper to make sure they just locked everything in and they wouldn't that game 1-0. If you look at the second goal, it's the 97th minute. How is it possible for Mario Lemina to run in behind like he does, to be on his own for that cross? And yeah, maybe they think he's offside, but he's just not offside. But you leave so much gap in behind between you and Vicario when you don't need to. Just hoof the ball down the motorway, and then at least you don't lose the game, you just draw it. I thought he was quite naive. And I think they will learn a lot from this. The problem is, Maddison is not going to come for a very long time now, come back for a very long time. Neither is Van de Ven. So they will have to find really very quickly another option for who can be the creative touch. Because even we saw with Son was far too isolated up front, had nothing in the whole game, nothing at all, apart from that shot that was blocked at the end. So they will have to find another way. But the answer is definitely not Højbjerg, Sarr and Bissouma in midfield.
Well, I think if you're looking for a bit more creativity, you're certainly looking at Bentancur. Now, maybe it was a fitness issue, and I don't know, because he's been out a while. Did get some game time on that London derby. But is it any surprise at the end that they're making these mistakes at the back when 3 of the back 4 have changed? And by the way, this is the old guard. You know, Davies, Dyer, Emerson Royale, 3 players that have not been in the team, and not been in the team for very good reason, because he doesn't fancy them, but needs must. So it's not really a surprise that they're making these mistakes, because these players have been making these mistakes for a while. And I go back to your point about it would being too nice to them. I mean, what do we expect? What's the expectations? I mean, the fact that he's superseded expectations with this run he's been on. There is always going to be some huge bumps in the road for this Tottenham side. They're not good enough to compete for 38 games. He said it himself after the game about the possession that they had. We were too conservative. He didn't like it. We're too conservative. He was asked about Maddison. He said, look, it is what it is. We're missing him. We need to find other ways. Now, maybe he needs to look, as Jules said, at his team selection and his makeup of that, and how he can sort of work his way around the deficiencies of not having Maddison and getting other people into the game. But that's something that he's going to have to figure out. But yeah, the wheels have come off a little bit at the moment, and do I expect him to go on another run like they did at the start of the season, up until the Chelsea game and this game? No, I don't, to be quite honest.
That's the thing for me. You take your 2 centre-backs out of the starting 11, and James Maddison, I think we can all agree, has been Spurs' most important player so far this season. So you take those 3 out of your starting 11, again, for me, a Wolves team that are trending in the right direction. I was expecting far worse than this. I was expecting a far more comfortable Spurs performance. The fact that it took 2 goals in injury time, I think, and again, you use some of these players who he has been willing to overlook with very good reason, given what we've seen from them in past seasons, and make a game of this. I thought, and I was impressed by that.
Running around with 9 men for the amount of time they did on Monday. It was Monday, wasn't it?
It was Monday,
so, I mean,
yes.
it's not as if they had a week. I don't think that certainly didn't help as well, because the amount of energy they had to expend on Monday, particularly with a high line that they had in the game, is not going to help, is it?
I hear you guys, but really, we are talking about players we have been replacing, okay, Romero, Van de Ven, and Maddison. And those players are Højbjerg, Dyer, and Davies. They're not inexperienced players. I remind you that the 2 goals from Wolves comes in the 90th and the 97th minute. So it's not like they weren't lucky enough to keep the clean sheet for 90 minutes and then collapse. That's the thing that I don't like about that game, is they were incapable of, okay, as Jules said, drop back, be conservative in that matter at the end of the game to keep the result. You have 7 minutes to hold, and let's say you can concede 1 goal, but 2 goals in 7 minutes with those players, again, it's not like young players. They are very much experienced players, international players. So for me, they don't have any excuses in that matter.
But that, again, it goes back to that point, doesn't it? It's the same players that have been making the same mistakes for several managers, and that's why Ange Postecoglou's come in and went, no, thank you. You're not in the starting lineup. Now, as I said, it's needs must for him. But Dyer, Davies and Emerson Royale have been making mistakes at the back now for 24 months plus, right? And that's one of the reasons that he's gone out and he's made changes in the back 4. 3 of them were missing. So I think there's a little bit of mitigation there in some sense with their defending.